good afternoon, everyone. This is the 15th episode of our Genomics Gupshup. This is where we get very renowned people in the field of medicine and genetics and other allied fields to talk and simplify the whole concept of genomics. And that's our effort at Mapmygenome. And today we have somebody who is not just a doctor, somebody who is also understands the value of great nutrition, changes in your diet and everything else, but he's somebody who's also Insta celebrity and has a lot of celebrity, celebrities who come to him for advice. So I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to listen to him. So welcome, Dr. Siddhant Bhargava.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anu, for having me here.
And you are popularly known as Dr. Sid.
Dr. Sid.
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So I think, Dr. Sid, maybe we can start off by just understanding, how and why you wanted to be a doctor.
It's very simple. That's all I've seen through life growing up. My grandfather's a doctor. My dad's a doctor. In fact, the books that we read in med school were written by my dad and grandfather. So it was just about trying to be like my father and my grandfather. And it was also about continuing that legacy, because being a third generation doctor meant something to them and eventually meant something to me. Got my marks, did everything right, got into medicine, and then got bored. Very like our generation, where we think we know what we want, but eventually we don't, because we're just confused kids. But I think I did enjoy being a doctor. Sometimes I forget that I'm a doctor because I don't end up practicing. But if I had the opportunity and the option to actually go back and get a little more qualified, maybe study a little more, this time I actually want to, I think I'd make a decent clinician and probably carry the legacy forward.
That's awesome. I had no idea that, you had medicine in your genes, really.
Yeah.
And that your father had written a book on.
In fact, it's actually funny that I've been disappointing my parents for a while now. Like, it's been almost a decade that I've been disappointing them, because my dad, my granddad, my bua's children, both of them, all of them belonged to KEM hospital in Mumbai. And I always thought that that's the place I want to be, right? Because you want to be in the same place as they were. And KM obviously comes first, and then comes Nair and Sion and JJ. These are basically the hierarchy of government colleges in Mumbai. And I messed up my CET. Luckily, so I didn't mess it up so badly that I had to go to a private college, which now does not matter. It doesn't matter where you studied from, especially not where you've done your undergraduate from. But I went to Nair, and that's when the disappointment started. And then I just think that each year kept getting worse, because I just kept getting more and more detached from medicine. But finally now, after all of these years, I think I can finally say that my family understands who I am, and I think they're proud of me. I'm pretty sure they're proud of me, and they're okay with the fact that I'm not doing conventional medicine. So it brings me peace now.
I'm sure they're very, very proud of you. But, I think and I have two kids, so I do understand, sometimes you don't want to,
How them
overly because I think there's a lot more that all of us can achieve, and sometimes that is of making sure that you push yourself a little bit further.
Absolutely.
But you also, I think, you also got onto this whole journey of entrepreneurship, and how did that happen? Why is it that you didn't continue to see 2,000 patients or 200 patients a day?
Yeah. So, it was fairly simple, actually, because I come from a very affluent family. I have never denied it. I was born in privilege, and I continue to live in privilege. The problem with privilege is that this privilege wasn't always the same growing up. Like, my grandfather was a very renowned doctor, but my father's the one who actually pushed the family's GDP a little upper. I remember the kind of life we had when my dad was still studying, when he was probably about 30, which always seemed odd to me, that you need to study till you're 30, you don't start a life. He was already married and he already had a kid, which was me, and he was still studying. I remember the kind of life he had then. I remember the kind of food I had then, the kind of vacations I had then. And then skip to when he turned 50 or 51 or 52, and the kind of lifestyle he was providing for me, my sister, my family then. Now, that always was concerning for me, because when you raise your child in privilege, he's already accustomed to the privilege. And the nature of the profession that he's choosing,
Hmm.
if you want him to stand on his own 2 feet, he's not going to be able to provide that for himself or for his family. And I feel that was a little disappointing for me. So the moment I entered, and I only understood the value of money once I started driving my first car. Once I understood that my dad has given me a car worth 6.5 lakh rupees, which I drive to college. And I saw that a lot of people in the government colleges that I went to don't have that privilege. That's when I understood that what my father's income actually is. And I was actually pretty happy that it was kept hidden from me, because I'm a very impulsive individual by nature. uh, my spendings even today are way off the charts, which I'm not very proud of, but I'm trying to work on it. So that's when I realized that, oh boy, this is not going to be easy, because uh, I'm seeing what doctors actually earn. I'm seeing what my professors earn. I'm seeing what these 55, 60-year-old people in government medical colleges earn. And I was like, this is not going to cut it. Like, this is genuinely not going to cut it. So in the first year itself, I started thinking that I need to do something more. And that changed my mindset a little bit. It did make me a little bit of a crook. And I feel every entrepreneur somewhere is a crook. It's like hacking and ethical hacking, right? You need to have the skill set to be able to hustle. But if you do it right, you're on the right path. So in the second year, it's an interesting story, actually. I realized that there was a gap in the medicine market, because we used to study using bone sets, the हड्डियों से जो हम पढ़ाई करते थे. And a lot of people across Bombay were buying synthetic bone sets, which did not have the organic ridges and the grooves and the muscle marks, etc., the tendon marks and the insertions and the origins, etc. So I started buying bone sets from the interiors of Maharashtra. I actually even went up to a couple of cemeteries asking them कि मेरे को हड्डियां दोगे क्या? I realized it was a crime, but so I started buying these bone sets from the interiors and selling them to freshers across Mumbai. And before I knew it, I had become the bone guy, because I had teachers and students and doctors calling me and asking me that, hey, can you give me a bone set? And I played it wrong a little bit, because my dreams have always been small. And even till today, I think I have very small dreams. So once I had done, I think, a turnover of about some 1.5 lakh rupees, I was like, bus hai yaar, matlab, you know what? I can afford my alcohol and my partying and my this and my that for a good 1-2 years. So this is it. But what I ended up doing was I ended up increasing the price of a bone set from 1.5 thousand rupees to 5,000 rupees. And my juniors who want to continue on this wagon, they increased the bone set price from 5,000 to 10,000. So I actually was solely responsible for increasing the price of a bone set from 1,500 rupees to 10,000 rupees in a matter of 2 years, which I felt horrible about. But that's when I realized कि पैसे तो कमाने हैं, because I did my own college trip खुद के पैसों से. I started buying my own alcohol खुद के पैसों से. At that time, as kids, we used to do this smoking business here, there, not understanding. And medical colleges are the worst place. Every addiction that you palo comes in a medical college, because there is this one section
Engineering
called
colleges.
Pakistan. There is this one section in the hostel called Pakistan, जहाँ पे सब वेले बैठे रहते हैं. And if you are not, I realized I'm prone to addictions very early on in life, because that's me by nature. I will get addicted to the most random things. I have gotten addicted to pulling my hair out. I have gotten addicted to smoking. I have gotten addicted to drinking, everything under the sun. And that probably could have been the reasons for the different ailments that I pallowed in my body. But I think I have grown up partially. So this is how the entrepreneurial thing started, ki paise kamane. And I used to keep finding odd ways to earn money here, there, everywhere, because my parents used to be very strict, because they knew ki he's little tedha. They've always known that. So they would not give me that much money. So I used to find my own ways of earning money. Now, once lupus hit, and the only reason I call it lupus is because it's complicated to explain what exactly it is. So lupus is like an all-encompassing disease. So मैंने lupus बोल दिया है. I did have 7 out of the 13 criteria required for lupus. So once lupus hit, everything changed. Because I went from being a super confident boy who had finally found his roots again, because I was very upset that I didn't get into KM. Like, it was major. Like, my rank in state CT was 214, which is wonderful. Yeah. Like, but I had cried the day my rank came out. I was in America, I remember. And I was just crying and crying and crying. And my then girlfriend, her rank was 1000. She's doing wonderfully well now, and the both of us were actually the bright star kids of our tuition classes. So जो pool बनता है ना सीटी का, वो दो ही सिटी से बनता है, एक है लातूर और दूसरा है मुंबई. And we were the only couple that was allowed to date in 11th standard, because we were 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. So her IQ had always been higher than mine, and she was always prophesized to be in the top 5 of state, and I was prophesized to be in the top 25 of state. But our ranks were pathetic. But I finally found my feet, and lupus hit. Everything changed. Literally everything changed, because I went from being a confident boy to being supremely underconfident. I'm going to actually, I'll show you a photo over here, what I started looking like, because it was pretty bad. Oh, do I have it here? I don't have it here. I'm going to find it in a bit. But सब कुछ बदल गया. I had joint pains. I developed massive vitiligo. I developed alopecia totalis.
All of a sudden.
Everything. 20 days, I was clean. Like, I started making random excuses to not go to college, not step out of the house. The addictions got worse. So everything was basically spiraling. Now, at that point in time, I was on massive steroids. Like, abhi chalo theek hai, keep injecting here, there, eyebrows ja rahi hai, inject karo. I've developed major atrophy everywhere on my scalp, my face, but chalo, it's manageable. I'm more mature also. But at that time, I was on 1500 mg of methylprednisolone every week, because we were trying everything under the sun to get my confidence back. It wasn't even about aesthetics anymore. It was just about confidence. मैं पूरे दिन, I used to just lie down on this bed, and that window ke bahar, I used to keep hiding from my parents, smoking all sorts of rubbish things. And because I didn't know what else to do. Finally, some 9, 10, 11, 12 months later, I saw this one hair come on my head. And I had given up treatment by then, because it was making me really weak. My blood pressure was up, down, up, down. My glucose levels were at 180, 190, 200, 210. I was getting really weak. We got our bone densitometry done. I was developing osteoporosis because of the steroids. So, काफी बुरा state हो गया था. But I grew stronger, because once I got used to it, and once my dad explained to me that, see, you're young, you're 90, you're 20, and this has happened. One thing you've done well is that you've already made your friends. So it's not like your friends are going to run away from you just because you look weird. Yes, making new friends might be a problem, but your old friends are not going to run away from you. I got stronger, and finally things started working out for me. But at that time, किसी ने मेरे दिमाग में बात भर दी that, see, you are now going to be immunocompromised for a significant portion of your life, because if you don't want the autoimmunity to return, you have to be immunocompromised. And then I got very, very scared of MDR and XDR TB, because working in a government facility, you see it all the time. And I was falling sick. Like, I used to develop these random nodes, and I used to rush to get an X-ray and a sonography done कि क्या है क्या है क्या है. So मेरे दिमाग में ये बैठ चुका था कि मेरे को मेडिसिन नहीं करनी है, and I dropped out. I was out of the entire space. I was doing basically nothing. One random party, 7th of July tha. It was in Lonavala, my best friend's birthday party. His birthday parties are always in Lonavala. So I was sitting with my now partner. His name was Devaj. And Devaj is, a no-nonsense kind of a guy. मतलब उसको कोई चीज से फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. His EQ is very low. So he didn't even understand what is going on with me. And that was very refreshing. Because I was meeting a person जिसको कुछ समझ ही नहीं आ रहा है. He doesn't care. So he's talking to me casually, this, that, ये, वो. And that time, my only passion had become gymming. मतलब body banani, I had started looking like that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the cap, because I have no hair, but I had developed a really large physique because I was eating massive protein, working out. So he said that, bro, you're becoming a doctor. I played along, ki, haan, I'm becoming a doctor. Have you done nutrition? At that time, I said, yeah, I've done my nutrition, because at 18, my mom runs a gym. So I had done nutrition and personal training. Jumma, jaise pass karke, I had done it. He said that, let's start delivering food to vegetarian households who actually eat non-veg, but their parents don't allow them to eat non-veg, but they want to go to the gym. This was the great idea that we came up with.
Wow. Okay.
So I had started reading about nutrition. I was like, I want to do this only. I'm going to deliver non-veg food to vegetarian households. My parents obviously did not find this idea amusing or interesting. They were like, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
right.
know what you're doing, but they were very forgiving at that point in time because I used to have these outbursts and behave badly. They were like, "ठीक है, he's going through something, let it go." Now, it had already been 8 months. I hadn't gone to college, nothing. The good part for me was that college was always sorted because I was the general secretary for 2 years. And I was the first localized general secretary of a government college. So I have choosed the power and how. Attendance was never a problem. I didn't even give my prelims. My internals were marked without giving my prelims. Then my friends and my teachers, they called and they said, Ki, Dekh, you give your exams. Jaise taise, whatever you find right, you do, give your exams. I came, gave my exams, passed my exams, and I was like, Ki, ab bas, internship mein nahi karunga. So I dropped out for the second time. अब इस ड्रॉप आउट के टाइम पे फूड दर्जी स्टार्ट हो गया था. We met two smarter boys, and that is why this non-veg wala idea got scrapped. And we came up with the idea that let's do fooddarzee, which eventually translated to let's do keto. We rode the entire keto wave, became a popular keto brand, and then eventually became a meal subscription service, which is macro counted, etc., etc. So this is how the entrepreneurial journey started. It was absolutely by chance, and it was 100% due to my escapist attitude. I have been an escapist by nature since I was young. Always run away from every problem you have has always been me.
I think you'll resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah,
But
because it's a very normal thing. Like, I have never considered myself special at all. I was pure lucky. If that drunk conversation on the 7th of July at Karan Gupta's Lonavala house hadn't happened, I would have been lost and probably even more of an addict today.
but
Pure luck.
you had first a Siddharth moment when you saw the people what they were making compared to what you were living,
Yeah,
and I guess in many ways I think it's a very fantastic story on how it has been built up. But you went from being somebody who went from the highs and the lows. It's fascinating.
yeah,
Right? I think one great thing that like a lot of people can take away from this is that all of us can go through different levels of feeling
absolutely,
different way
absolutely.
differently, and sometimes there are things that are not in our control. Maybe these were
Yeah,
something that was there in your genes, or
yeah.
that's why it, and what
You
you
know,
did
I
is
always say this, that everybody has problems.
that
Literally, everybody has problems. Somebody's husband beats her, somebody's wife is having an affair, somebody's dying, somebody's poor, somebody doesn't have food. It could be anything. So, everybody's in the same boat. There is nobody who, even the richest kid in the world, has his own first world problems, which are very real to him.
absolutely.
Don't belittle anybody's problems. And
I,
part two of the same story is that if you have a problem and it's solvable by logic, be anxious about it and solve it. But if you have an unsolvable problem, why worry about it? Yaar? Kya milega? If it's unsolvable, it's unsolvable. If you're not born with hands and legs and there's no way to attach a prosthetic limb to you, you're born with no hands and legs.
correct. I think you have to find the best way of how to
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's maybe move on to saying that clearly your life has not been easy, but you were able to take care of yourself, and we are able to
Yeah.
actually build on that journey. But when you think about it, there are so many people who are suffering from lifestyle disorders, really, right?
Hmm.
Because of what they are what they eat and all of that. Do you think there is a role for genetics or genomics to play in this field? And as a doctor, do you think it's something that it should be, incorporated into medical or regular practice?
100%. The optimist in me wants that ये सारे tests आए और इतने tangible हो that people can draw inferences and act on those inferences to prevent all of this. But that's the optimist in me. The pessimist in me will keep telling me that a large part of any uh, उसको क्या बोलते हैं phenotype and genotype, right? Phenotype is what presents and genotype is what's in the genes, correct? So phenotype, if I'm not wrong, is always going to be what is it called? Alleles होती हैं,
I
पता
mean,
नहीं क्या क्या होता है.
polygenic, multiple genes.
Polygenic. And that's the complicated part. That I don't know if it's going to take another 5 years, another 10 years for anything to become so concrete that we can save lives the day that kid is born. So that his entire life can be about making better decisions because he already knows what's coming.
So, one thing I like to tell people is that when you think about genomics or genetics, it's not that we are telling people, hello, you have you have a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the end, that's the statement for it. But if you think about it, before Google Maps, we still drove our cars, we still went to different locations.
Absolutely.
And when you have access to that information, then you are likely to take a different route. You're likely to be able to avoid the place which has a one-way. You're likely to be avoiding something that has gone wrong or congestion. So I think in the same way, I think people have to realize that this is a tool that helps them find that right route.
But I have two questions for you here. One, till there is no evidence that all of the inferences that we are drawing from this can really change things, people won't take it seriously. Like genomics aside, human psychology has to be considered when we talk about genomics, because people don't give a damn. That's just how they are. Like it's always the way it's been. Part two is that this is going to change millions and millions of lives only if this becomes a mandatory testing prenatally or even at birth. Because if it's optional and if it's expensive, then again, what we discussed before you click the button record, that preventive healthcare is for the rich and for the privileged.
Yeah, we of course don't want it to be for the rich and the privileged, because actually, if you think about it, right, if you can get this to anybody, and I think currently, for instance, most of the genetic tests can be ordered online and you can get the homes. And in many of the tier 2, tier 3, and even villages and other places, I think we don't have that much of a infrastructure when it comes to actual proper medical care. So actually, this becomes a great way of being able to create an opportunity and create a profile for them in locations where it's difficult today to access normal healthcare in those areas. But I think of course I would love it if it becomes a mandate, but I think we've been doing this for a long period of time. I think Mapmygenome is my second startup, and we've been doing genomics for 22 years.
And I've heard wonderful things about your first startup as well. I was awestruck, like, damn, like this couple has been in business for almost as many years as how old I am, and they've already created something so big. When I spoke to your husband also, the first thing that came out of my mouth was sir. I could not have viewed any of y'all as an equal, because what y'all have done is crazy. So it's my privilege that you have invited me on this Gupshup, and I'm feeling so happy that somewhere you're considering me some sort of an equal, and that's why we're having this conversation. So thank you so much for having me here.
Not at all. I think you have, everybody has their own different things that we all are, working towards. And what you have done is absolutely outstanding. So I think, we would love to talk about how we can sort of put these pieces of this together. I think there are expertise that lies in different areas. So, clearly, I think we had this discussion on preventive healthcare and how we can make this for inclusive. And I think you mentioned about pricing, and I think maybe it will be great to give a little context. So when we started in 2000, I think the cost of sequencing the whole genome at that point was a few $1 billion, and it required many people across the globe to be able to build that, right? And I think, if you think about it as a parallel, it was the same thing when you look at what happened with, just the semiconductor chip and other things, right? Started off, it's very expensive. Now, over a period of these 22 years, we've been able to see that today everybody can have, technically can have access, right? The cost has come down to 6,000, 6,500. So it has come to a point where it is quite reasonable, and it's normal. This thing, it compares with what you do with normal blood tests or going to any sort of a checkup. But from few $1 billion to even in 2011, when Steve Jobs was actually getting his whole genome sequencing done, when they discovered he had pancreatic cancer, it was about $100,000. Right? So I think it is not that, imagine in the last 10 years how much that price has been reduced. Even when you look at what Mapmygenome has done, right? When we launched it in 2013, the price point was 25,000, and clearly at that point,
I remember this.
It was for the privileged. It was, and I think we couldn't reduce it further because our volume is very, very low.
Yeah.
And I think that change has started to happen.
What does the machine, see, I have no idea about how it's done. Okay, so I'm going to sound like an absolute noob, but the machine that does the sequencing, what does that cost? Like, is it a crores and crores wala machine? Because like an MRI machine is what, 20 crores right now. So is it that costly?
So it would be, so there are different kinds of, when you look at sequencing, right? When you look at just how do you actually find out, you do the sequencing, there are 2, 3 ways of doing it. One is you want to do the full genome sequencing, and now you have many types of sequencers, right? So we have, for instance, one which is like a tiny sequencer. You can literally plug it into your laptop and be able to do. But the cost for doing that will be, obviously, if you do a whole genome sequencing, will be higher, right? So that's a little tiny machine that you can do. Then there is the one that is at least a million and a little bit over $1 million, which is the NovoSeq, for instance. And then you have, if you're looking at it from just markers and you're looking at a chip-based testing, then you're looking at something that will also be at least a few crores, 3 to 4 or 5 crores. So
and
then,
are these machines bulky or they're tiny?
So the one I mentioned is tiny. It's really tiny and very cute. And hopefully maybe, I can show that to you at some point of time. And that's really very, very nice. And it became very popular during COVID sequencing, because that was, from a cost and from sample perspective, became a fantastic way of being able to sequence those genes. But when you're looking at what we're doing in like a Genomepatri or any of these myfitgene, mynutrigene and all, we would do what we call as looking at a genotyping chip, right? So what you're doing is, first when people collect their saliva sample and they send us the sample, you're getting either saliva, blood, or whatever sample type that you're taking.
Is there a difference? Is blood supposed to be more accurate, or are you able to do more things with blood? Because I'm supposed to send 2 bottles of 2 ml EDTA to the lab. So why is mine not saliva and why is mine blood?
Sure, you could do saliva also. Now, what happens is when you're doing, let's say, array-based test versus if you're doing an exome sequencing, which is what
I'm going to do,
and what you're doing with the whole genome sequencing, right? Now, a whole genome sequencing, think about it, it's like 100 gigabytes of your data, right? So you get your 3.2 billion base pairs, and we're doing it at least 30 times minimum. Then your typical average size would be about 90 GB of data. When you're doing an exome, it's typically about 8 to 10 GB of data, right? To get enough coverage of that. So that's typically what you do. But an exome is just about 2% of your whole genome.
But exome is the only relevant part, right? Like this is what Udbhav was trying to explain it to me. He said कि वो जो पूरी gene sequencing होती है, exome is the only part that actually presents. Is that right?
So that's the part that is what we call as something that converts into proteins and is where most of the critically relevant areas are. But there are genes in other parts of, but there are other parts of what we call as the introns and other parts of the genome that you might still find relevant markers, right? So when you do a Genomepatri, you're looking across the genome, but you're looking at specific areas of the genome and you're able to then track it. Now, when you think about it, it's sort of like, one is you want to find out something that caused a disease, right? So that's specific causation of the disease. And then the second one is where you're saying, can I find something that correlates with my disease, right? So, which means that when you take something like how they find these markers, right? So when we talked about polygenic, sometime back, we were discussing.
They find the same mutation in million people and then they can label it.
So you're taking multiple of those and then our algorithm actually comes out with a risk scoring. So it depends on what you are looking at. Now, if you do, let's say, I'm sure you have done the RT-PCR many times, right?
Yeah.
So, now over there, typically you are just looking at, 1 or 2 or 3 genes. Right? Those markers were typically done only on a very small portion. And there you're trying to assess if you have the virus. So you're looking at those markers. So again, if you look at genetics and genomics, it can be of different kinds. You might be looking for one gene. You might be looking for one marker. You might be looking for, when they do a BRCA test, for instance, they're doing that whole gene, right? So again, different things, and different amounts of how much you cover. When you have cancer, for instance, then we take a lot of the tissue samples, and the tissue samples when we take, then we would actually run that, at least 1,000, 2,000 times to be able to find if there is a mutation. So hopefully I didn't give you too much.
No, I'm actually supremely interested. Like, I'm really sorry that this is the direction that the Gupshup is going towards. I know it was supposed to be more
Gupshup.
casual, but
It is
yeah, but
it's fine.
but it's just that you can edit it later. But the thing is, it's very interesting to me because it's automatically become pretty close to my heart, because over the last couple of years, me and my partner both, eventually we're going to get married, etc. And we've come to this ignorant decision that we don't want to have kids because she has autoimmunity pretty bad on her side of the family. And anyways, a bunch of diseases in one person at a pretty young age. So we've just come to this conclusion that we're not going to have kids because we don't want to subject our kid to the same thing. So I'm genuinely hoping that by the time we have kids, which is in the next 5 years, something comes up where I can already understand, is my kid going to have something which is treatable or no? Because I want to have my own child. Like it's a proven thing, right? You don't love anybody as much as you can your own children. You just can't love anybody as much. So I want to have my own child, but I'm scared because I don't want my child to be 17 years old and then suddenly have something and his whole body turns white because he's got vitiligo and then there's no cure for it. And then he becomes the black sheep who's actually white now, which is, it's very disturbing. So I had this conversation, Nirja, where I'm very inquisitive, and is why I had this conversation with Udbhav and Subhash also, that I want to become your number one proponent on social media, because the moment I believe in something, it automatically becomes mine, right? So if there is an opportunity for me to become your number one proponent, being one of the largest health influencers in the country, I want to do it, because if it can help people and change lives and prevent a whole world of trauma to other people, that's the calling, right? You're helping people.
Yeah, and we are so glad and so delighted that you.
Yeah, like I actually got emotional now again because it's very close to my heart, right? So
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so. Hopefully, we will get to that point where you to understand, not just for you, but to be able to help other people that are also going through.
absolutely.
And it's not just for people who are already having something that is in your case, for instance, you did find out the hard way, I would say.
Yeah.
I think it might be better for us to be able to help people so that they are able to manage that without having to actually have to go through the disease in the first place at all. So now we've discussed, and I think we went a little bit towards.
That's okay.
Let us maybe discuss a little bit about you're one of the proponents of the ketogenic diet, right?
Yeah, used to be.
Used to be. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So you don't offer off the shelf diets. You are the Darzi, or the one that tailors these diets.
Yeah.
So why did you think about this particular, personalization of these diets? Do you, clearly, I think, at least when we look at things, we do understand that, different people have different genes, and therefore we need to tailor those diets. But in your case, when you're working with these clients, and many of them are well-known celebrities, did you find that different people react differently, or how did you come up with these?
Barely. So when you say personalization, it's basically the maximum amount of personalization that a company can do while still holding on to its operations and its profits. That's what personalization means. Like if my CEO gave me a free hand, ki Siddhant, तेरे को जो करना है तू कर, it would not be feasible to the company, because then I would make way more personalizations as per every single individual, which is not possible. Part two is that it's not that complex. Like nutrition is very ABC, very, very ABC. The personalization that is key and that can create 95%, like one standard deviation of your bell curve, is macro control and calorie control. And that's what we do best. One thing I'm 100% confident about is that at the fooddarzee kitchens, my chefs are genuinely measuring everything before cooking and genuinely measuring everything after cooking. And that creates a world of difference. We grossly underestimate the amount of calories we consume through the day, is why we don't lose weight. Simple है. घर पे हम कितना तेल डालते हैं खाने में is grossly underestimated.
दिखता नहीं है ना?
दिखता नहीं है, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where the personalization starts, that I need to give the correct amount of calories to the correct individual, and that is going to be preventive healthcare for him for a really long time. If he eats less and he loses weight, there's diabetes, there's blood pressure, there's joint pains, all of that can eventually not happen if you're just staying within the correct ranges of BMI. And I'm using the word BMI, although I don't like it, but it's okay to quantify the general population ka health status based on your BMI. So that's personalization number one. Personalization number two is about the diet being sustainable. Because the toughest part about being on a diet is being on a diet. You want to make sure that the diet is so simple, which means the food needs to be tasty, it needs to be varied, and it needs to be of the same likings as what the person usually does in his everyday life. And that's the challenge. Food can't please everyone. किसी को ये लगता है, किसी को वो लगता है, but we try and cater to the majority. And that's personalization number two. Personalization number three is तुमने calories कर लिए, तुमने macros कर लिए, तुमने खाने का taste कर लिया, उसके बाद you come to allergies and likes and dislikes. So if you do not like bell peppers, I will not give you bell peppers, because giving you bell peppers means you will not stay on the diet. So I will try and create as many personalizations as possible to make sure that this person sticks to his diet. The diet needs to be sustainable. And that's why I don't promote keto as much now. When we started, doing keto was a pure business decision, because we realized that the keto wagon or the wave is just coming. You ride it and you'll be successful. And that's what we did. I did not know anything about the ketogenic diet before fooddarzee decided to do the ketogenic diet. I read like a maniac, and I could confidently say 2-3 years ago that I probably know the most about keto in the entire country, which was me being cocky as always, but I genuinely had read that much. Then we realized that keto is not sustainable. It's a beautiful diet. I have no problems with the science and the concepts behind keto. The only reason I don't promote it openly is because it's not sustainable. Aadmi 30 days karega, 35 days karega, he'll fall back to his old habits. So doing keto for short periods and doing keto for people who are very diligent and mentally strong enough to do a ketogenic diet for months and months, like I did keto for about 2.5 years straight.
Wow.
And I made my own keto. I could drink beer on keto. I could eat roti on keto because my cells were absolutely keto adapted. I could tolerate up to 60, 65, 70 grams of carbohydrates per day and still stay in ketosis, which is why I kept trying to explain to people that if you can give it your life, keto is very forgiving. But then as a business decision, not very smart. And then we purposely started moving people out of ketosis into a more balanced diet, which is closer to their home. That is what is going to bring you retention and increase the average lifetime value of your customer.
So I guess, in like whenever you bring in new music, I think you have to have a little bit of what people already know for it to be successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I've been, I have been experimenting, for instance, with my own diet for many years. And I think now I've found the rhythm, right? I mean, one of the things that at least works for me, and I've done a lot of biohacking on myself as well, was to actually see, intermittent fasting in some form. I think it's always good, especially as you are aging.
Absolutely.
For us, it is, when you are at that age, then I think it makes sense to sort of look at those options because.
And I think when you're an entrepreneur, you anyways end up intermittent fasting for some odd hours or the other. I mean, when you're working, you don't really think about food. So I think that comes pretty naturally to us.
It does, but I think, I have to give up the intermittent feasting also,
Very well said. Very well said.
So I think all those are it's great. But do you think, you've been now Insta influencer, so you feel that a lot of these people look at you and they think that they can just copy what you're saying and do it, or do you think that
they can? Like the whole point of my content is to make it so bite-sized and easy that people should not find it complicated to follow, and that's what I've been trying to do. But the social media is very khokla. Like you can't give yourself the importance just because I have almost 500,000 followers today. I recently made a video that about 25 lakh people saw, and it was forwarded on WhatsApp groups. Like it was manic. It had some 6-7 lakh shares, but I can't give myself the importance and say that I am very relevant. If tomorrow anybody made that video, that person will become relevant. So I will never say that people are following my teachings. I'm just saying people are capable of following teachings, chahe wo koi bhi bole.
No, I think.
Now I'm happy it's me. Yeah. Obviously, I love it. But
yes. No, but I think there has to be some. I think it's not easy to create content that is appealing to that many people.
Yeah.
Right? There is a certain.
So, it's more about marketing than it is about content. If you're trying to create virality, if you're trying to become a good, big content creator, it's definitely more about how you market your content than the actual content itself.
So that's the lesson that
yeah. And it's a very toxic place to be in. Very, very toxic place to be in. Like, imagine, I'm happy. Like, I've spoken to you for about an hour now, and I haven't touched my phone. I'm very happy, because otherwise I'm all the time going back and seeing likes, shares, follows. It's very toxic. And you're competing with somebody or the other all the time.
There's always someone who has more likes or more shares.
Yeah.
So, do you think that when you work with a lot of people who are, and especially celebrities, where did you have to micromanage their diet or
yes,
and is it easy to do that? I mean, and how do people change their habits?
So like, it depends. Like, if a celebrity, like, see, normal, I don't like saying normal, but people who aren't celebrities, they don't feel as entitled. So they listen to you because they respect you. With celebrities, they've tried out everybody. Matlab, nobody is their friend. Everybody is a contract worker, which they're trying out. A couple of them, when they like you, they stick to you. A couple of them move on, and that's always been the case. It gets tougher with celebrities for sure, because they just feel that they need to be serviced a little better, which at times when I used to be starstruck, I used to do. Now I'm not starstruck. So if somebody is throwing too many tantrums, I let the person go, because my partner Anirudh, he taught me that a celebrity is just one person. A celebrity is not your technically word of mouth wala person, क्योंकि ना वो तुम्हारे लिए कुछ बोलेगा फ्री में, ना वो अपने फ्रेंड्स को बताएगा कि वो अपने फिटनेस का राज किसी और को बताने नहीं वाला है. So it's one person. He goes or she goes, it's okay. It's just a mental satisfaction wali baat that, Alia Bhatt talks to me on WhatsApp every day. It used to be fun when I was 22 years old. Now, some of them are acquaintances and some of them are no longer acquaintances. And yes, you have to micromanage for them. They always start off with taking fooddarzee food, because I always believe that the brand is always bigger than the individual. And they will always come to fooddarzee first. They will take the food, eventually realize that, why should we eat out of a dabba? We can afford a 1 lakh rupee per month wala chef. We'll just get the chef to make all this food. And then they eventually just come out of this consultation bit. So you're actually talking more to their chef than you are talking to the celebrity. And their briefs change, their expectations change. And as long as you're matching their expectations, you're good. The moment you're not matching their expectations, they ghost you and you're out of their life. And it can be very fickle, because something as simple as if they feel bloated for 3 days straight, and it's just normal. Like, मतलब nutritionist भगवान थोड़ी ना है. मतलब मेरे को क्या ही पता है क्या हो रहा है उसके बॉडी में. मतलब I know that this food can cause bloating, but do I really know what's happening in their body? No, I really don't. So if I can't find a solution, they're gone.
So ab genomics ke saath we'll find out what is
probably. Absolutely.
Yes, because I think that will help. But there are other ways, I think, of somehow constant tracking, right? I mean, when you're looking at all these little, I used the Abbott, the Freestyle Libre for some time. I think that was fantastic for a short period of time. It was
exactly short period of time. क्योंकि तुम उस information से क्या ही करोगे आप? If you're not diabetic, and if you're not even pre-diabetic, and you know that your insulin sensitivity is fine, why will you keep wearing it? It's the same problem I have with ultra-human, that my insulin sensitivity, thank God, touch wood, is absolutely fine. Even if I eat a chocolate, my blood glucose levels never rise above 120, which I'm very grateful for. So now why will I keep wearing the ultra-human patch? So biohacking has its space. I genuinely feel that biohacking, up until now, jitna mere ko gyan hai, it's always going to be more eye-opening than sustainable.
True. I think it gives you information that you can use in terms of how you will change your life. Now, one of our collaborators, works on, he's a neurosurgeon, and he works on mental health, and what we've been trying to sort of connect those two dots, right? The genetics and the behavior and a lot of...
Who is this collaborator?
She's Dr. Evian Gordon, based out of Australian.
Nice.
Now, what we found with them, what we are doing is that they have an app called Total Brain. So it basically looks at the whole brain, how you behave and respond to certain things. And then we also connected that with the genetics, right? Because we feel that ultimately anything that you do, whether it is change of habit, which we are trying to do with, when it comes to changing your food habits, changing any of the habits that they have, is also about knowing, what is going on. And I think part of that comes from genomics, part of it comes from how you are at that point of time, right? So I think if we are able to connect those two dots, and we are also now trying to connect it with blood tests and other data types,
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to understand more, right? I mean, of
You
course.
know, it would be so cool if you could somehow, matlab, I'm clearly not smart enough to do it, but you guys are. If you all could come up with a way to measure how, and very tangibly measure how good or bad your environment, your food, and your water is. If there could be a device that can do it in its, not in its literal sense, मतलब I don't want a meter that is telling me कि मेरे air में कितने particles अभी दिख रहे हैं और my water has etc whatever, but something that can connect all these things to how it's affecting your health. That is going to be an absolute game changer. Like imagine if you could tell me that the water in Kandivali that the BMC is supplying, Kandivali is one suburb in Mumbai, is better than the water that is being supplied to Santa Cruz where I live. I would try and obtain the Kandeli water because you have told me that there is something in that water which is better than this, and you are going to live 75 days extra in your life. If that can be done, it's crazy because you've spoken about your lifestyle, you've spoken about the genomics, but we've not spoken about environmental factors, जिसका control हम में से किसी के पास नहीं है. मतलब we've heard of people who change their cities and go to the hills. Doctor बोलता ना change your scenery for a bit, but can we actually do that?
No, I think part of that reason, I think I don't remember whether we had it before this discussion online, but was that, when you look at it, at home, we use a lot of air purifiers, using a mask and all of that, partly because we feel that some of the pollution can be controlled based on that. But there are some devices, and I think the one that I use, one of my weighing machine actually has connected to my phone, and ultimately everything else that goes into it does look at your carbon dioxide, looks at certain other parameters that are there in your environment, right? And now we are seeing more and more of such devices coming, which are measuring your air quality, air information, and that's sort of connecting with my daily measurements of weight or other such things. So one is that we can measure. The environment is easy, relatively. And then there are also some products that have come in where you are scanning that information for that particular food, but again that's a tough thing because it is okay to do it at a grocery store, for instance. You can see if,
like, imagine if I could poke a micro needle into the apple that I'm eating and it would tell me कि इसमें pesticides का कितना ppm है. That's life changing.
Correct. I think that hopefully someone will come across. I mean, in a few, hopefully maybe someone's already working on it. I don't know.
Probably.
And then there is, from the water perspective, I think now you can actually test a lot of the waters that are coming in. But I think if we can make it as part of the processing that we can do, I think it will be great. But
it's so confusing, Have you heard of this brand called Kangen Water, which is multi-layer marketing wala brand? Japanese brand says alkaline water, basically.
Correct.
So they sell you 5 lakh rupee machines, which my mom has also put in the house. When I got this cancer surgery bit done, thinking that mera bachcha jaldi theek hoga. But they always tell you that mineral water is acidic, ghar ka pani is acidic, drink alkaline water. So the amount of money that goes in proving things could be very misdirected also, and that again is very unsettling because after being over here for 5-6 years now, and after apparently being a doctor, I still don't know what is right and what is wrong. I have absolutely no idea. Yesterday I was doing a little research on homeopathy, and apparently homeopathy is absolutely a sham. Their principles are completely wrong, but there will always be anecdotal evidence to say that homeopathy is right.
It's always a big huge thing of discussion in our house. So I'll tell you one thing though that happened, and I think when we were younger, we were on homeopathy, right? And I think one thing that it did was that our body was not exposed to too much medication, right? So
Hmm.
when we had any problem, I think my father would give me some small nice pills that were tasty, and we,
Yeah.
right? So now I don't know the science behind it, but we would have constant debates. My brother would say it doesn't work at all. My father would say it always
So,
works.
it works on the main principle, and it's when you're a logical lady, it works on the principle called potentization. So they take one part of a medicine, it could be an allopathic medicine, and dilute it in 9 parts of water. उस dilution का एक part लेते हैं and diluted more 9 parts of water, and they keep doing it till it almost becomes 1 part in a billion parts, which means only the essence of the medicine is left in that solution, so much so that the actual active particle is not there in the diluted solution. And then they dip these sugar balls in that and let it absorb this essence and give it to you. And you know what they believe? They say that the more we dilute this part, the more potent the medicine is getting. And I'm like, what are you saying? ये कहाँ से sense बनाता है यार?
No, I can't comment on any of the that, because I'm not a trained doctor.
Yeah. I'm making a reel on it soon. I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but hopefully the hate makes it viral. Let's see.
Yeah, so I'm not going to comment on any field of medicine, but one thing is definitely there, right? Like one of the areas of medicine, and where at least genomics can play actually a very strong role, is in terms of understanding how these drugs work for individuals, right?
Yeah,
Because
very interesting.
because I think when you think, my dad was on metformin for many years. I think he became diabetic at the age of 40. And but when my mom turned diabetic, and she was 65, 66, something like that, and for her it was like she had just come to visit me, and I found that something was awfully wrong about her. And I said, what happened? Why are you suddenly feeling so down and all that? Have you changed something? And she said, yes, I've just been diagnosed with diabetes, and I've just gotten on this medicine, same thing that your dad used to take. And then I realized, I said, wait, let me check. So I checked her pharmacogenomics report, and I found that, that doesn't really, it doesn't work for her. So we then changed her medicine, right? And it's a common medication that pretty much everyone, I think, gets access to.
Supremely common now.
Similarly, I think there are so many other such things, whether it is statins or whether it is that people have had very strong reactions, and people die out of by some wrong medications that have been given. So that, when you talked about homeopathy, I suddenly got into the whole medicine world.
Yeah.
Realized. So one of the areas that some of the doctors felt that was very useful was that, if you had this profile already and someone came to an ICU, you would know immediately what would work for them and not work for them.
Yeah.
So, we said, instead of it being something, people said, why do you need to know, right? But, problems don't come up by telling you that, hello, I'm coming, right? I mean, sometimes, you might be in an accident, something happens to you. You go to you go to an emergency unit, and maybe the medicine itself will cause you a problem, right?
Yeah.
So I think there are many.
This one was really interesting. Like, I love this one, that if you knew that which vasopressor works the best to get your blood pressure up, you give only that and not waste your time giving the others. That's pretty interesting.
Because you don't have the time, right? I mean, similarly, I think when we talk to psychiatric doctors, for instance, I think one thing we realize is they really, by the time the medicine is acting on them, it's already a month, 2 months, and you don't know whether it'll work for them or not. You're better off having that information upfront.
Absolutely. Very interesting.
And I know that I've already taken more than an hour, so
I'm good. I'm loving this conversation. Like, absolutely loving it.
So I mean, we can take it any way we want, and I can keep talking, and I know you've just come back from a trip. So yeah. So, but before I end, I have to do the rapid fire test.
Done. I'm excited.
Rapid fire questions, just 3 or 4 of those. So, I mean, let me think of a couple of them. Let's start off with that. And shall we go to rapid fire?
I'm exciid. Yep.
Uske baad mein, if you have any questions, we will go back.
Done.
So, what's your favorite book or a movie? If you
I don't read.
Movie?
Kal Ho Na Ho. I just saw it right now and I cried.
So why don't you read? That's very interesting.
I have ADHD. I just can't. I can't sit and stare at the page. Even through medicine, I've always had friends who've verbally read out every single page of, which makes it very non-scalable again, but I can't read.
Audible?
It gets difficult to do that also. Basically, sitting in one place and just focusing on one thing is just not my cup of tea. Never has been.
What was your worst subject in school or college?
English.
English. Okay.
I
Interesting.
used to pass English by like, I used to get 50 out of 100. And I never realized why, because I was just too bored. Like comprehension and essay, I hated it. Grammar rules, like my spoken English is absolutely fine, but rules of grammar and all, just never. So English, I hated it.
So you don't
Literature and language, both.
so you don't like to learn new languages also, or you do?
I like it, but English was just bad.
I think you already know it, so you don't want to invest
Probably.
in learning subject.
Like my percentage, I used to get 100 in every subject, and English would just get it down straight. It used to anger me so much.
Yeah, I think everyone has that favorite subject that they don't,
Yeah.
that brings their marks down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any food that you detested as a child, but today you eat it nicely.
Coconut. Coconut. I used to hate coconut, but today I tolerate it very well.
Any favorite vacation spot?
Any favorite vacation spot is, it could be, okay, it's the mountains, anywhere in the mountains where there are stimulants and depressants kept in front of me. That's my favorite vacation spot. So I love, basically, again, I've spoken about this now a couple of times. That's my personality. And I love to experiment with what the brain can do outside of its Norman realms. So I am absolutely open to every experience. I just choose it wisely now, because if it's causing cardiovascular aberrations as well, so I avoid those. But if I can confuse my brain with something that I can ingest or inhale or whatever, I will do it.
So how did you figure out? You're obviously a great experimenter, like I am too. But you come to a rhythm, right? To some extent.
Yeah.
How did you Thursdayfy your own lifestyle?
Okay. So again, to some people it sounds really naive, but I believe in optimizing fun. And if I have given myself 2 hours to have fun, I want to make the most of those 2 hours, which means jitne sare experiences mein wo 2 ghante mein bhar sakta hu, I want to do it. So for example, again, it's okay. I mean, I did this when I was not in India, so it's not illegal. But uh, when you have alcohol, and I don't know if you've ever consumed marijuana in your life, or if you want to talk about it on Gupshup, but when you have alcohol and when you have marijuana together, it's called a crossfade. And the crossfade can be a beautiful experience if you do it right. So I have spent hours and hours and hours in trying to achieve the perfect CrossFit, and now I think I can do it perfectly. And it's basically a combination of a stimulant and a depressant working perfectly together. So I just believe in getting all experiences together, and I've experimented with a lot. I just hope my parents aren't hearing it, because yesterday on the family group, they sent me a message that, hello, Siddhant, we have heard that you do drugs. I'm like, what are you saying, ma? I don't do drugs. Like, ye sab mat bolo aap. So I just hope they're not hearing this, but I believe in it. In fact, the whole, again, I hope I'm not boring you, but psychedelics, President Nixon was the reason why psychedelics were labeled and banned. Because at that time, the hippie culture had come up and people had realized that being productive in life or having achievements or goals in life is not the end of life. Like, you can just live life on a barter system where I give you rice and you give me dal, and both of us are just tripping. Now, President Nixon needed people to fight in the war, and he realized that a lot of Americans are being unproductive, is why he said that drugs are the worst thing possible for you, and acid, or LSD, which is lysergic acid diethylamide, was banned then.
True. I'm
But
seeing a
it
lot
could be a
of
wonder drug.
Netflix documentaries and around that, and I think while I haven't tried it myself,
It's not life changing as people label it to be, because I've tried it multiple times with different
done enough
doses.
experiments to
It's not life changing. There is no epiphany that comes about where people have. When I was young, people used to tell me weird things because I was scared. Like, oh, no, drugs, no. Drugs, maybe they're called chems, right? Because they're synthesized chemically. No, I will never touch them. But once I got to the logic behind the drug, that what it does to the brain and how safe it actually is, and whether it has a potential to be addictive or not, then I realized that it can be done.
Great. So one is, of course, you found out the point where.
Yeah.
But in terms of your food, how did you figure that out? Was it by trial and error?
Very simple. Yeah. A lot of experimentation. So I know that over a certain amount of protein makes me feel gassy and bloated. So I cap myself there. I know over a certain amount of carbs makes me feel puffy and bloated. So I cap myself there. I know over a certain amount of fat, somehow I break out with 1 or 2 pimples, which has happened here now. And I'm not prone to acne. So it was a lot of experimentation. Even with the hours that I have, I choose to eat 2 or 3 meals maximum through the day. Somehow my body has just become programmed to not feel hungry in the early hours of the day. So मेरे पैसे हमेशा होटल में वेस्ट होते हैं क्योंकि breakfast complimentary मैं खा नहीं पाता because I just don't feel hungry. So I think it's a mentality of trying to optimize small processes in your life so that you don't have to spend time thinking about them later. I like feeling in control of irrelevant things and letting life happen spontaneously for everything else. That's how I've been.
I love how you call yourself like you're making it sound like it's a very easy thing, and you're basically being irrelevant to yourself. So
I mean,
it's very refreshing. Not like like what you would expect normally, right? So it's fantastic. It's nice.
I mean, on a bad day, you just call me a naive kid, but on a good day, you're appreciating it. So it's
No,
perception.
no.
Everything is perception.
No, I don't think there's any good thing, or I mean, I don't say there's something wrong with anybody or a good or somebody's naive. I think it's different habits that people have that they're able to leverage upon and be able to grow. And I think what you've been able to do, coming out of both autoimmune problems like lupus, but also I think you were diagnosed with cancer and come out of that. I think it's not a simple thing, and you're only 28, right? 27. Yeah, even younger. So I'm saying that's younger than when I started my first company. So kudos to you for having lived such an absolutely interesting, not something that
I'll just add one thing to it. So I believe in this, that shit always happens. You just have to have soap and water ready to wash it out. That's all life is about.
I like
equip yourself to have soap and water and you're good.
That's awesome. So that, I think with that note, I think maybe everyone will be able to figure out how to wash their shit with the soap and water, and what their soap and water is in their body.
Absolutely.
And I think what maybe as a concluding this thing is that I think there are many ways to be able to find your way forward, and a couple of ways is to be able to understand and know yourself better. I think each one of us is different, right? We are not none of us are the same, and expecting that even though we are 99.9% alike, I think it's how we actually develop and become as individuals is all very, each one of us is so interesting and so have their own stories, and I think that's why these gupshups are so exciting for me to be able to.
In fact, I'd want to say this is one of my most favorite conversations that I've had in a while, because I do these podcasts pretty regularly and most of them are around the same thing because they just are. But this one has digressed and then come back and then digressed. It was actually refreshing to have, and it's almost been 30 hours that I haven't slept and I'm still capable of continuing this conversation with you. So I honestly want to thank you for inviting me here and for having this wonderful, wonderful conversation with me. I think I've learned a lot today.
Thank you. And thank you, Siddhant. And it was great to listen to Siddhant ke Siddhant.
Yeah, man. I think I'm going to become a Baba one day.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anu, for having me.
Maybe once we have a discussion after you've gone through the sequencing part of it and see if there's something you would like to.
In fact, we should have this one discussion with a neuroscientist who studied the effect of drugs and addictions along with genomics, and have people who've gone through that shit. I think it can be a supremely interesting conversation.
Let me ask a couple of people I know, and let's do that. A three-way conversation in that.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much, Anu. I'm going to see you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.